Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I'm going to be creating some French country Christmas bell ornaments. For my projects today, I'm going to be using these plastic bells that I thrifted for just $1. I am going to be using Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer first to prime the surface. I'm going to apply one coat and let it dry for about an hour. Then I'll apply a second coat and let that dry for a couple of hours. This primer is going to create the perfect surface for my paint to stick to. I'll also be repeating the same steps for the inside of the bells as well. Next, I'm going to be using a mold that was gifted to me, but I believe this one is available on some Amazon sites. I'm going to dust it first with cornstarch, and then I'm going to be working my dust air dry clay into that center design. Now, these molds do not have the micro rim, so they are a little bit trickier to use, but I am just sort of going to flex that mold, then flip it over, and you can see I'm sort of gently pulling little bits of that casting out. I did have a couple of little breakages, but that's fine. I can always glue them back together. So I'm just going to continue to curl that mold back to release the casting. I'm then going to be adding my Sealy's Quickset wood glue directly to the surface of the bell because this is such an intricate design. That was just the best course of action. And then I'm going to start to mold my casting to the surface, and then I'm going to pull off the excess down the bottom. I then took out my Redesign Madame Garland mold. I have dusted one of those trim style designs, and I'm just working my dust air dry clay into that. I'm going to be casting two of these. There's two different designs of those, and then I'm going to be adding my glue to the surface of the bell again, and I'm going to start wrapping that casting around the base. I let my castings dry for several hours, and then I took out Paint Couture's grounded mineral paint. I'm going to be applying just one coat to the entire bell. This is not going to be our final color, but it is a color that closely matches a metallic that I'm going to be using next. So it can definitely be helpful to pick a similar tone color that's a bit more opaque to have that underneath your metallic, so you're not having to use as much of that metallic. So I'm just going to continue to apply that paint. Now, this mineral paint also has a built-in top coat, so I'm not going to have to worry about doing any sealing. And I'm of course going to be repeating the same process on the inside. I then took out Paint Couture's Vintage Lace Luxe Metallic, and you can see it is a really good base for this beautiful metallic. I'm just going to apply vintage lace over the entire bell. Again, I will be also repeating the same process on the inside of the bell. And because I have that grounded mineral paint underneath it, I only had to do one coat of this vintage lace luxe metallic. And even if there are a few areas where maybe I was a little bit lighter with the metallic, the grounded color really complements this metallic really nicely, so it doesn't look too bad at all when that happens. I let my project dry overnight, and the next day I came in with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze. I'm going to be going over the top of the entire bell. This glaze is going to help create a lot of definition. It's going to really bring out all of those beautiful details. It's going to give this bell a bit more of an aged finish. Obviously, if this was not to your taste, this is definitely a step that you could leave out. I then took out a wet wipe, and I'm going to start pulling back some of that glaze, especially from the high points, so that it sits down in the low points, really defining those details. And I'm going to continue the same process over the rest of the bell as well. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to be going over the top of the castings, starting with that beautiful bow. I don't need it to be full coverage. I like the subtle difference in tone with the vintage lace and the bronze, so I'm just going to continue to apply it. I'm not going to be applying it to the face or any of those sort of laurels that are around the outside section. Instead, I'm going to use Paint Couture's Oyster Pearl Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to go over the top of those just so that I can sort of better define and sort of separate those sections a little bit. Otherwise it all sort of, I find, blends together. So I'm just going to apply it to the laurels either side of that cameo style design in the center. And again, I don't need it to be perfect coverage. And then I'm going to also start applying it to the cameo style face in the center as well. I also then decided to add some of that oyster pearl to some of the berries on that trim design that we have around the base of the bell. The white felt a little bit stark on the laurels, so I'm just going in and very lightly adding a little bit of bronze to try and tie those sections together just a little bit more. I don't want to completely obscure that oyster pearl though, because I do like that subtle variation in color. When that was dry, I took out this gold corded style ribbon that I got from Kmart Australia, and I'm going to cut that to size and then tie a knot. That's going to be perfect for hanging. And then I took out this chiffon ribbon. I've already cut it in half, so it's a little bit thinner. I've wound it around my hand a few times, and now I'm going to take another piece of that ribbon and tie a knot in the center to create a messy sort of bow. I then took out my hot glue gun, and I'm going to add a bead of hot glue to the back of the bow and attach it to the bell. And here's a look at our first finished bell ornament. I love how this turned out. That casting looks perfect on these bells. You wouldn't think that they were plastic. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my second bell, I am going to be using the Madame Garland mold by Redesign again. I'm dusting the cameo sort of emblem design up the top, and then I'm working my DAS air dry clay into that design. As I was doing this, I did then decide that I didn't want to use that smaller bow from that design. Instead, I decided that I wouldn't use that, use something else instead. I'm then going to be dusting the rose sort of swag design from that mold and working my DAS air dry clay into that. I'm then going to flex the mold and then pull that out. I'm also going to cast the other one as well. I then added some of my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to the back of that emblem style design, and I'm going to be adding that towards the top of the bell. And then I'm going to start adding glue to the rose swag designs, and they're going to go around the bottom of the bell. I ended up casting 3 of the rose swag designs so that I could continue that pattern around the base of the bell. I then took out that same mold that we used in the first project, and I'm going to be doing a partial casting. I just really want to get this bow design. I think that that will look lovely on the top of the bell there, and I'm going to add some glue directly to the surface because this is a bit of a delicate casting, and then I'm going to press that down. I did then decide while that glue was still wet to move the emblem piece a bit further down so that we had more room for the bow, and I had a little bit break off that I can easily glue back on. After a few hours of drying time, I took out Paint Couture's Italian Ivory Mineral Paint, and I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this over the entire bell. I really love this creamy tone. It is perfect for French country. This one ends up being a little bit French country and a little bit shabby chic almost. I definitely wanted this to have a little bit more of like a feminine feel to it, so I'm just going to continue adding that beautiful Italian ivory around the outside, and then I'm also going to be coming back in when the paint isn't completely dry, and I'm just adding in some brush strokes. This is just going to create some texture and create a little bit of interest, so I'm not working the paint too hard. And then I'm also going to be painting the inside of the bell as well. When my paint was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Antiquing Glaze, and I'm going to be applying it over the top of the entire bell. Now, the Italian Ivory paint that I already have down has a built-in top coat, so I'm able to come in and use a wet wipe and wipe back as much or as little as I like. I definitely recommend adding a sealer down if you're working with something like a chalk paint so that you can more easily remove your glaze without it sort of sticking unevenly in certain spots. I then took out Paint Couture's Rose Gold Luxe Metallic paint, and I'm going to be going around the base of the bell and adding it to the rose and floral designs that we have in that little border. I'm just going to continue adding that to each of the florals that I find there. And I'm also going to be adding some of that rose gold to the emblem design in the center. Before that was completely dry, I took out Ballet Slipper Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to layer this over the top of that rose gold. It's going to create a little bit of interest, a little bit of depth, and I'm also going to add it to the florals on the emblem design as well. This just creates a little bit more interest, and then I'm going to come in with Paint Couture's Vintage Moss Mineral Paint, and I'm going to be adding that to the leaves and the stems and the greenery that I have on that border on the base, and also on the emblem design in the center. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will put it in the description and on the screen. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. Before my paint had completely dried, I took out a wet wipe, and I'm going to go in and lightly distress some of that paint to give it a bit more of a worn and vintage look. When the paint was dry, I took out my glaze brush that I was using, and I'm going to just run that over the top of the areas that I added the color to. I haven't added any extra glaze on there. I'm just using what was already on my brush, and then I'm going to wipe some of that back. And I'm also repeating the same process on that emblem in the center. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to be applying that first to the bow casting that we added up the top. I am going a little bit heavier with this. I do want there to be more bronze as opposed to a sort of worn look. I definitely want this to be a bit of a feature. So I ended up doing 2 coats on this one, and I'm just going to be focusing that bronze on the top section to start off with. I also then added a little bit to the rim around the center part, but I did wipe a little bit of that back so it wasn't too intense. And then when that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Oyster Pearl Luxe Metallic, and I'm just going to be painting over that little lady that's in the center there. I then took out some gold ribbon that I had in my stash. It wasn't really the color that I wanted to go with, but it was a really good width. So I'm going to water down some of my Italian Ivory mineral paint. I'm going to stir it really well so it's nice and watery, a really good consistency. And then I'm going to cut the length of ribbon that I want, and I'm just working that out by wrapping the ribbon around my fingers, as I do want to do sort of like a double finger bow. And then I'm going to scrunch it up and put it into my watered down paint. Now this was a little bit messy. I ended up getting out like a plastic bag to hold it in instead. But when it was dry, I repeated the same process, wrapping that ribbon around my hand. And then I cut the extra length off because I am going to be using that to tie it around the center of the bow. Next, I took out some more of that gold ribbon or twine, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to cut that to size and tie a knot in the end so that we have something to hang it from. And then I'm going to add some glue to the back of our dyed ribbon, and I'm going to glue that up the top. And here's a look at our shabby chic style bell. This was a really fun project. It was great to be able to use some colors that are not really traditional Christmas colors, but definitely something that would look beautiful on a Christmas tree. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my final bell ornament, I'm going to be using Redesign Salon de la Paix mold. I'm going to be dusting one of those designs with cornstarch and then working my dust air dry clay into that design. Now this is quite a delicate design, so I did have to be gentle, otherwise I would sort of push too much clay out. So I just kept going until I had it filled the way that I wanted. Then I flexed that mold, and then I flipped the mold over. This is one of the ways that I like to do it when it's a sort of a more intricate design. And then I started pulling it back, this time sort of horizontally. I then added some of my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to the bell surface. I'm going to spread that glue around. This is a rather intricate casting. I then gently picked up my casting and I am going to apply it to the bell, and I'm just going to keep sort of manipulating it until I'm happy with how that's sitting on the bell surface. And then I am also going to be pulling off the excess clay from down the bottom and another little piece that's over on the right hand side. I then started doing partial castings of the florals in that design so that I could create a border to go around the bottom of the bell. So I ended up casting quite a few of those, and then I'm applying the glue directly to the surface of the bell and then applying the floral castings around the bottom. And I just kept casting them until I had enough to go around the whole way. After a few hours of dry time, I took out Paint Couture's Opal Green chalk paint. I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this over the entire bell. Now, this is not really a colour that you probably think of when you think of Christmas, but I was definitely thinking of sort of French ornate style panels and the colours that you sometimes see in those. And this is just such a beautiful, rich colour that I just really wanted to see what an ornament with this tone would look like. So I'm just going to continue applying that chalk paint over the entire outside of the bell, and as I said, I ended up doing 2 coats to get the coverage that I wanted. Once I finished with the outside and that was dry, I also applied it to the inside of the bell as well. I let my castings dry completely and then came in with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze. I'm going over the top of the castings to create some definition. The steps I do later do sort of make the glaze less obvious, but I still like to do this to, as I said, sort of give that definition and show all the details of the beautiful castings. I'm adding that glaze, really working it into all of those low points, and then I'm using a wet wipe to wipe back the excess. I also used a mister to help that glaze move a little bit more freely. It does sometimes get a little bit stuck in the really tight areas, and I'm also going to go around the rest of the bell repeating that same process. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Pacific Pearl chalk paint. I'm going to take some of that out and put it in a plastic container, and then I'm going to grab my mister and I'm going to be watering that paint down because we are creating a white paint wash. I then started applying the paint wash over the details of the castings first, really allowing it to go into all of the crevices. As I said before, it does make it really tricky to see the glaze now, so it may even be a step that I didn't have to do, but I would rather have done it than not have. So I'm just going to continue adding that whitewash, and then I used my mister to help that paint move, and then I used a wet wipe to sort of dab at the paint wash, and then I also started adding it to the rest of the bell. I do definitely want more of that paint wash visible. I really love the look that this provides, especially when it's going over the top of sort of more of a textured surface. So I do allow more of that white to remain visible, especially on the areas that don't have any castings. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to be applying it over the top of the details. Now, I don't need this to be perfect coverage. I am going to be holding my brush at a little bit of an angle, especially when I get to the floral sections. And I do sort of dab off a lot of that bronze. I don't want it to be too heavy. I just want it to sort of catch those high points and really draw attention to all of the details in these castings. And I'm just going to continue to add that beautiful bronze over the Redesign Moulds there that we've added until I'm happy with how that looks. I only ended up doing 1 coat of the bronze. So this is definitely a project that you can customize. If these colors are not to your taste, you could come in with more traditional colors or maybe have it be a little bit more neutral. It definitely just depends what your style is. I personally really love a sort of a French look, and this definitely is a bit more of a moody French look, definitely. But it is fun to try out new things and to see how different colors will work together. Just like on the other two bell ornaments, I'm going to be using this gold ribbon, and I'm going to cut that to length and tie a knot. Next, I took out this thinner, almost sort of a champagne style gold ribbon out. I'm going to wrap it around my hands. I think I ended up doing it 4 or 5 times. I then cut another length and tied a knot in the center to finish off the bow. Finally, I attached the bow to the bell with some hot glue. And here's a look at our third finished bell ornament. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I'm loving the combination of the blue and the whitewash and the bronze. But let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video and that it's given you some ideas on how you can take plastic bells and turn them into beautiful Christmas ornaments for your tree. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find most of the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.